All right, how's everyone doing? I am Rich CELENZA. Thanks for checking out the Rich CELENZA show. So, what I'm going to call this podcast is Where Do You Belong? And the reason I bring this up is because I live in Florida. And especially the last, I'd say, year through the pandemic, I've never been hit up more regarding people wanting to move to Florida, thinking they belong here, which they may or may not. I don't know. I have a lot of family members, colleagues, friends from all over North America, including Canada, including, actually, I should say, Europe and Italy, too, wanting to always come here. To Florida, I should say, not just the United States. I think they see on social media maybe the lifestyle that others lead here, including maybe myself, and what's kind of going on here with us being open, having a little more leeway as far as being able to do a lot more than what others are allowed to do. And I've gone to Chicago now 3 times in the last few months. And it's unbelievable kind of the difference between the two places, even though you're in the same country. It's almost, I've always said, because I've lived in Florida basically since I was 18, with the exception of me living in San Diego for like 5 or 6 years. And a lot of people think Florida and California are the same, or close to it relatively, and I'm here to tell you it's not. I mean, they have palm trees, don't get me wrong, and good weather. The lifestyle is entirely different. The people are entirely different. Just the blend, just food, atmosphere, fashion, weather. It's actually not nearly, it's just totally different. It really is, especially the winters and the summers. Just different place. If you looked at a picture, you may not think so because you're looking at the ocean and the palm trees and saying, wow. But if you go even further back, obviously California has hills and mountains and things, and Florida's kind of more flat. Let's call it for what it is. They both have, Florida even has, I can't say more water, but yeah, you're in a peninsula, which is almost like an island, I think, that's in the United States. It's comparable to Bahamas, right, to a certain degree. And just a very interesting place, Florida. But here's the thing, and I'm not getting long-winded on this with that, but if you are somebody who's kind of stuck in a place you don't want to be, and I kind of sometimes feel like this, because I went to Italy, and I just had this discussion with my uncle last week, or this week, I should say, I'm sorry. So me and my cousins and my uncles went to Italy. We were able to go up and down. We traveled to, I don't even know how many towns. It was amazing. And we literally started at the top, went very low all the way down to Sorrento, and then we had to come back up. My uncle wasn't feeling very good, so we had to make sure we took care of him and his health. And the further we went south, we were just afraid of the hospitals and things in that nature. We wanted to make sure we were near a big city, like at least Naples. So we spent a lot of time there. Not a ton, but a few days. A couple extra days, 4, I don't know. That's where our family's from. And me and my uncle were there, and I could see, out of everyone there, me and my uncle were like just eye to eye with this one. And I was there, I was making sure he was healthy anyways, but I remember looking at him, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, we even had this, I'm like, a lot of these people look like us here. And he's darker than me. But it was like they were either not real dark, but darker, or they were a little lighter like me. Shaved head, same clothes, hands, everything. Or they were like, if they were older, they were like my uncle. And he was there with his brother. But it just wasn't the same. And me and that uncle were, excuse me, me and my uncle that were looking at each other, my Uncle Giuseppe, I'm like, this is kind of, this is us. Like we were home. Like we just knew it. We felt it. We just had this discussion again this week. He's like, that's like the food, the only thing he didn't like was Italian coffee made the way they were making it, like espressos or cappuccinos. He likes an American style coffee. Other than that, the fashion, the stores, the restaurants, the drink, everything. I mean, it was just like me and him. He didn't feel good, but we goof around and says, we almost should have just stayed there. Because it's kind of interesting sometimes. I will say that you may be somebody who got raised somewhere, right? So I was in Chicago being raised, and I knew I did not belong there. I knew it. I did not have anything really in common, except I liked the city, maybe, and fashion, and the food. But when it came down to my core, I knew this. I once even had this conversation with Joe Montana. I might have brought up on a previous podcast where he said he felt the same way and moved to California. And he said to me, Rich, we're Italian. He's from, I think, Sicily, and we're from Naples, and I'm from, my family's Vasto, which is right across from Rome. And, the weather is much different. Now, I know that sounds weird, but once I moved I was going back and forth to Florida from the age of 5 and going to California to visit other family members. When I got there, I knew that's where I belonged in a warmer climate. I felt like an entirely different human being. And I think I just left at 18. But I was already doing summer schools in Florida. I was almost like half Florida, half Chicago kid. And, I'm going to just tell you, if you do feel like you're not where you belong, and I think a lot of people feel like this, I'm not telling you to get up, move your kids, get nuts. First, take the time to find where you truly belong. Again, I was going back and forth to Florida for many, many years, and a lot of people made fun of me even when I moved there, like, oh, there's all rednecks, there's hillbillies, it's all, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, like everything, all New Yorkers, all this stuff. In the Midwest, Chicago was talking that, because in the 80s, even 70s, a lot of the Midwest was going to California. Like, California was cool, Florida was a swamp. But I was like, my dad went to Florida, but I was really considering California. California was just a monster. And not only did my father move here, I had a lot of wealthier family members that had condos and homes in South Florida. So it was kind of more of an easier transition. I also kind of, believe it or not, I didn't even realize it till later in life, I liked Orlando because I had access to, Cocoa Beach. I could go to Daytona Beach. I could go to Clearwater. I'm kind of in the center of Florida, Jacksonville. I could head south. I liked Miami. But when I was younger, it was mainly just all older people, or elderly, which there's nothing wrong. It's like people think South Beach now. It wasn't like that before, that I can assure you. I mean, there were some hip things, but that really didn't in my eyes, really kick into the late 90s and then really catapulted, kind of when social media catapulted the last 15 years, because South Florida just got really exposed. But I should say Miami in those areas. But a lot of South Florida was built around Boca, Pompano, Lauderdale. Those type of areas to a certain degree. But again, if you want to make a move, if you really are interested, I tell people, just go spend some time there. And don't just go once as a tourist. Go there as if you'd live there. And a lot of people are like, what do you talk about? Well, I'm like, listen, if you move to Orlando, Florida, I'll just use for an example, you go there, you may have been here. You probably did all the parks. You lived like a tourist. That doesn't necessarily mean that's how you're going to live when you're here. Yeah, you still may do those things, but it's not that. Florida, Orlando, I should say, is not Disney. That's Lake Buena Vista for one. And it's also not just downtown. It's also not just Universal Studios, hypothetically. That's in the Metro West kind of area, or iDrive, Sand Lake, Kirkman. There's all these different areas, and I'm just using that for an example. But a lot of people are like, I'm not going to waste my money and just go spend time there. Well, if you're not willing to spend, kind of experiment and spend money going to see where you truly belong, do you really belong there? Or are you really interested in going there? A lot of people say they want to go somewhere, and they really don't have a lot of times any idea what it's really like. And I think that's where a lot of people make mistakes, or they think that place is amazing, a lot better than it really is. Or I'm going to wrap it with this. A lot of my friends say from Florida, from Chicago, want to move to Florida. And a lot of them live in okay neighborhoods. Some live in wealthier neighborhoods. But for the most part, when they talk about moving to Florida, they're looking at $500, $700, $1 million homes, needing to be near the ocean, needing to be near certain towns that they visited and they loved. And I get it. But that may not be affordable for them. Start somewhere, but get to where you need to be a little bit. If you need to get to Florida, and you can't afford Pompano or Boca, I'm just saying if those are the areas you want to go to, maybe go a little, inland, or go to an area that is close to there, and then as time goes on, maybe then segue your way into that. And I know a lot of times when people want to move to Florida, they want to be near the ocean. Same with California. But a lot of times, just because you can't afford to always get what you want, doesn't mean you can't live there. Okay? California, on the other end, that's a little trickier. It's very expensive no matter what you do. But Florida, there's a lot of great areas now. We're getting everything. I'm not here to pitch Florida. But yeah, if you definitely, you're not happy where you've been throughout your life, you got to have the balls to at least experiment and go try something. And again, even if it's just you take a month off of work or you take a leave of absence and, you just go there. And I'm not talking go for 3 days, 5 days, or 7 days like it's a vacation. Because I could assure you, what you think a lot of these places that you visited, that you fell in love with, to live there is an entirely different experience. The reason I really know this is because I've traveled throughout North America so much, and I've spent so much time in certain cities that I wasn't a tourist anymore. And then I truly became a part of the culture. A lot of places in New York, well, I lived in California, but even Canada, in places in the Midwest and different parts of Florida, I was there so often, people thought I lived there. And I really got a taste to say, you know what, I know where I kind of belong. I know right now where I want to be and I don't want to be. And there's so many people, millions upon millions, that are not happy where they want to be. And they're also confused where they don't know where they want to go. So this is just something I want to do a podcast on. But please pay attention to these things. Nothing is worse than living in a place that you don't want to be year after year, decade after decade. And I have a lot of those friends. And a lot of them still keep talking about coming to Florida. And they keep talking about they're going to retire. I'm like, when you get to Florida at 60 or 70 years old, most of the time that I've seen people have done that, they're miserable. They never left earlier because now they're older. They don't have the energy. They're not going to be able to experience Florida the way you truly could experience it, because it really is a great place. But that could be California. That could be Manhattan. Well, now with the pandemic, it's different. But if you feel like you always want to be a city slicker in New York and you're stuck in South Dakota or wherever, go there for a little bit. I could assure you, to look at it on social media and maybe go there for a few days, you might have loved it and you love the energy. To live there is a lot harder than you think it is. That goes for a lot of places. I hear people saying, hey, I want to go to Alaska, maybe just get away and just go hunt and boom. I'm like, do you know what it really, going there for a few days again on a hunting trip or taking a cruise through there, much different than spending a lot of time in Alaska or even Canada in general or other places. And same with Florida. A lot of people don't realize how hot it is for 4 or 5 months. That could be Arizona. But then there's a lot of beautiful winters. So anyways, just really pay attention to this, in my opinion, and try to find where you want to be, man. And again, it may not be forever. I think a lot of people think if I move there, I'm stuck there forever. Not necessarily. I mean, if you have kids and things, don't get me wrong. You don't want to be taking them all over the place. But I'll tell you, you may be shocked your kids may like experimenting. They may like going to Florida for 4 or 5 years, and they may like saying, hey, we like Florida, hey, let's go try California, or hey, let's go to Texas, or let's go. Don't underestimate the journey in life. I think a lot of people think, hey, I have kids. Like my mother, it wasn't her fault, it was just being her, but saying, hey, I'm stuck in Chicago. We had family in California and Florida. We could have left, and of course my mother had her family there. But I would have been happy to go, and I'd be happy to keep traveling or visiting different places and maybe living in different areas. I think it's a culture you're teaching your kids. And don't think, again, it just has to be forever where you move. And if you move somewhere and you don't like it, don't beat yourself up. Keep moving forward. Find the place you truly want to live, because most of the time, I believe, a lot of times where you move, the first go is what I should say. A lot of times you realize that it's not what you thought it was, but that doesn't mean, again, if you come to Florida, for instance, you come to Orlando, you're like, man, I don't like this, it's too touristy. You may love Naples. You go there, you're like, oh my God, this is the Florida I always want to be in. It was kind of like Italy when we were in Milan, or certain areas. It could be, Florence, or, we were hitting all these other places before we got to Naples, and we're like, I loved Italy, of course. I'm like, and then when we hit there, we're like, this is it. So anyways, you get a chance, check out my channel, Rich CELENZA Show, or my channel. This is the Rich CELENZA Show. I'm sorry, I got to go eat. I am starving. If you get a chance, check out my website, richcelenza.com. And if you want, check out my YouTube channel too, Rich CELENZA. So I wish you nothing but the best.